sharing, I want to talk about the importance of carefully considering the who, what, when, where, why of sharing or not. Sharing our stories. There is a time and a place, and there are people who are deserving of hearing our story, and there are people who cannot be trusted to hear our stories, and we need to think really long and hard about what is best for us in our healing journey. And we have to think about others, but you got to think about, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first. In other words, if you're still in the process of healing, you cannot be concerned about helping others heal. You know, two crippled people can't help each other walk. One of you has to heal first. So I was called to make this channel after my healing journey was complete. Now, obviously, I'm still living. I'm still encountering challenges. And as I encounter them, I deal with them as they come. Right? But I lived a whole life, 40 years of incurring injuries and traumas, and they compounded and I pushed them down and I compartmentalized, and my psyche was shattered into a million pieces and my heart was broken, and I had a breakdown, and you know, I have a whole story, we all do. But I finally realized that the only way that I was going to heal was to stop relying on my own limited understanding and to lay it all down at God's feet and trust that God knew best for me and let God put me back together. And that's what happened. It happened in the woods. There was a fire, and there was a prayer and a ceremony, and I consecrated myself with the Holy Spirit, and I was made whole once again. And then I was given things to do, things to say, including this, and I obey. And that's why I have this channel. I'm speaking to you as a person who has been transfigured. Not enlightened, I'm not perfect, I'm healed by my God. And that's why I feel completely safe to share what it is that I've been through, because I'm no longer controlled by it, right? And because of that, I'm no longer in danger of having other people take that information about me and leverage it against me to manipulate me or abuse me or use me in some way. And this is why it's important to consider the who, what, when, and where of our sharing. Because if you are still in the process of healing, you are vulnerable. If you have a gash in your leg and you're trying to suture it and stop the bleeding, while that's going on, there are predators about that smell that blood. You don't want to say, hey, I'm over here bleeding. That's generally not a good idea. I will tell you, as a person who spent 40 years as a broken, traumatized person, because my trauma started from the day I was born, I had predators surrounding me my whole life. And I kept being re-injured and re-traumatized because I was vulnerable and susceptible. And I often overshared, because part of my injury and my trauma and my abuse was that my boundaries were never respected. No one ever taught me that I was allowed to have boundaries or what healthy boundaries were. And sometimes I would overshare, and I thought that that's what connection was. And I would share with the wrong people because I was attracted to people who were abusive, because that's what I knew and that's what I was always surrounded by, and I was comfortable with that. And then those people, being predatory, would take that information and they would use it to their own advantage. So this, please, 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 just be very careful with yourself and your story. Not everyone is deserving of hearing your story. Not everyone can be trusted with it. Now, there will come a time in your healing journey where it won't matter the character of the other person, because whatever the information they have about you can no longer be used against you because you've healed so much. There will come a time when that happens if you stay dedicated to the work, to the journey. But see, this happens to me even now. As a person who is strong, standing tall, without fear, with God, knowing that God's got my back and that God lives in my heart and that God is guiding me, when I share my story, there are people who they hear it and they try to leverage it against me. But now I have good boundaries. And I have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and I know exactly what's happening, and I just put a stop to it. I walk away. Okay, but if I was still bleeding out, there might be a problem there. So just be careful. Be mindful of that. Love yourself. Part of loving yourself is knowing that not everyone can be trusted or should be trusted. You know, that's how we get broken in the first place, because not everyone is doing good in the world. And the people who aren't doing good, that are being abusive and hurting others, they're broken too. And we can understand that, but it doesn't mean we excuse it. It doesn't mean they're safe. Okay? So just be mindful of that, and be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself. You can heal. We can all heal, because all things can be made whole and right through surrender to God. And I think that's all I want to say about that, but it's very important. Maybe you don't have anybody. Maybe you currently don't have anybody in your life that is safe to share with. That can be the case. It is with a lot of people. A lot of people get broken because they're surrounded by family members that are abusive. But this is one of the great things about our technology. You know? It's one of the silver linings of this technology. We can use it to reach out and find people across the world now who we can relate to. Okay? And I know that this is why God has called me to share my story in this way. Because in my community, I've had a lot of people reject me, push me away, call me a weirdo, call me crazy, and that's okay. I know who I am. But it might be a lot harder for me if I didn't have a way to reach out and talk to people and spread my word and share my story. It might way harder on me. So, you know, as much as I talk about how our technology is inappropriate, it's always about the consciousness behind it, using it. Okay, we can use this technology for good, even if there are people trying to use it against us and weaponize it against us. We can use our heart and our minds and our character and take it and use it for something good, and that's what I'm trying to do. And whatever it is that you're going through now, or whatever it is that you've been through, just know that God uses all things for the good. The shit you've been through, the shit you're currently going through, it's compost, baby. It's black gold. And I promise you, if you keep digging, you keep flipping, you keep doing the work, a beautiful, beautiful garden, an abundant garden, will grow up out of that shit. And then you can take the fruits and you can share it with everybody, even the assholes, even the predators, because they can learn from you too. And you'll know how to set a boundary. And you'll know how to keep yourself safe, because you've done the work and you know yourself, and you'll have the eyes to see.